Let's do this. The Cult of Podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Bruce. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, all things considered. Oilers game canceled, Condors game canceled, but at least that frees me up for my astronomy club meeting tonight. So,
That's a little bit of an important thing. It's not every day that you get an asteroid named after you. So congratulations, Bruce, on having a asteroid in our solar system. I guess we don't know about like all the asteroids in other solar systems, but we know the ones here, some of them. And
many
you've
of
had
them.
many of them, and you've had one named after you, which is a tremendous honor. And congratulations! It's in recognition of your lifetime interest, passion, and promotion and work in the astronomy community, and well deserved.
No, thank you very much. It is a fun honor for sure, and there's about 23,000 named asteroids, so it's not that unique of a feat, but that's actually quite cool because some of the named asteroids are people I'm proud to associate with. Let's put it that way, and it's including some personal friends and mentors. So that's kind of cool in its own way. And
And Johnny
uh,
Cash, I hear. Johnny
Johnny
Cash.
Cash, he was named right after me in the release of it just came out late December. That and his name was right after mine, the Man in Black. So maybe people will be in there reading about him, and there I'll be right next to him. So how cool is that?
Will your asteroids travel forever? Travel the eternal celestial heavens are like close and in close proximity to one another. You and Mr. Cash.
I don't think any specific relationship that way. Just happened to be one
The
number
next
next
one
to
on
the
the
other
okay.
in that particular month's batch of honorees. So it's kind of fun. Leonard Cohen's got an asteroid named after him, and Glenn Gould, and all three members of Rush. There's lots of famous people up there.
I just had a scary thought, Bruce. What if 100 years from now, it's the McCurdy asteroid that destroys Earth? Have you ever thought of that?
Well, yeah, I have, and I'm very confident that there's zero chance whatsoever of a main belt asteroid ever intersecting Earth's orbit. And this is, it wouldn't be fun. Like it's 4 or 5 kilometers in diameter, they reckon. So, but it's not an Earth crosser, so it is nothing to fear at all. Kind of like me, right? Kind of dim and remote.
But will it? Okay, let's move on. I could. Oh, just wait a second here. I gotta go pay for a pizza any second now, Bruce.
Mhm.
I'll just have to hold off on this. Bruce, we're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers possibly signing, possibly interested in Evander Kane, possibly interested in the Edmonton Oilers. That's what
Mhm.
Darren Dreger is reporting, and I will read to you now a little excerpt from Darren Dreger's report on Evander Kane, who had his contract terminated today by the San Jose Sharks. I'm not sure if it was today, this morning, I think. Anyway, there's an NHLPA grievance in that regard, so who knows what's going to happen there. But he is possibly a free agent right now. And here's what Dreger said on TSN 1260 radio today. He said, I know the Oilers have made calls. I know that Kenny Holland has talked to the agent Dan Milstein. Where the Oilers fit in terms of the list of teams that will explore the interest in Evander Kane? I think, given the obvious, the way the Edmonton Oilers see a bright future in not only Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but in some of the other assets, Evander Kane would be wise to look at the Edmonton Oilers. And I think Edmonton, if they stay as interested as it seems like they are, would probably be in the top five from Kane's perspective. And now that might be a bit premature. Again, this is all pretty new. It's all very fresh. Clubs are still exploring whether or not he would be the right fit. I believe there are at least 15, 20 teams max that have expressed some interest in Evander Kane, unquote. And he talked about how he would fit in as a hockey player with the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that, as a hockey player, Evander Kane still has a lot or something to offer to an NHL team. Certainly would be an addition to the Edmonton Oilers. That said, and this is me speaking, there's serious allegations against Evander Kane,
Yeah.
both from his estranged wife in regards to his conduct during the pandemic. There's serious questions about him. So what do you think about it, Bruce? Do you think, first of all, do you think that it's worthwhile for Holland to do due diligence, take that step at least, do due diligence on Evander Kane to find out what he's all about and see if there's interest, see if it might be a fit? Do you think that they should go that far even, or just wash their hands of it as some people would have the Oilers do right now?
Well, due diligence is, I mean, it is what it says it is. I mean, uh, how much of what's on Kane's rap sheet is verified versus how much is uh, things that he's been accused of. I mean, the league dropped the charges, if that's even the correct word, on a couple of the allegations made by his ex-wife, and clearly there's plenty of acrimony there. And which isn't to say that he's innocent. It's just they've claimed that they could find no proof that I mean, these are very serious charges, domestic violence, and she accused him of not only gambling on hockey, but I believe on his own team, and that there was some very serious stuff in there. But the league exonerated him on that, and then he went and got himself suspended for 21 games for faking a vaccine card. And now he's breached his contract, according to San Jose, and Kane and his agent and the Players Association are disputing this. That he breached his contract by trying to fly into Canada while he was on the COVID protocol list, and going across the border was a no-no. Apparently, he lives in Vancouver and was trying to get into Vancouver. So, and I mean, all this stuff is like recent in the last few months. And Kane's got a long rap sheet that goes back many years. Just some of it just foolishness, like getting his picture taken with
Stack of
piles of
money.
money and stuff like that kind of rub people the wrong way. But some of it is certainly more so than that. So due diligence is going to take a while. Let's put it that way with this guy, because it's not just one thing. This is not a second chance that we're talking about here. This is a fifth or on that order. And sure, he's a hockey player, and he brings a whole lot of things that the Oilers don't have. But uh, so I guess due diligence is but it has to be due diligence with an end result that can be, no, we don't want any part of this. If
Yeah.
I'm actually
I
kind of surprised. Sorry, just to complete a thought. I'm just kind of surprised that the NHL, if they accept that he breached his contract, wouldn't say, okay, he's suspended for the rest of the season. Start
I
pushing. I
don't,
mean,
yeah, I don't legally, I don't know the
yeah,
parameters of that. Is that between him and the Sharks, or the contract between him and the NHL, or both? So
yeah,
I can't answer that about the
right.
legality of the NHL taking further action. We do know, as you pointed out, and you had a lot of great detail there, that the NHL has investigated Kane recently. So if Ken Holland, I don't know who's privy to that kind of investigation work, or Ken Holland could call up someone at the NHL office and find out. Um, but a lot of this work has been done, as you say, recently, digging into this player. And also that there is a report recently on all these allegations. So that's one way for the Oilers to find out if that is open to them. And again, I don't know if that's the case or not. I think that they should do the due diligence, and I think that that due diligence should include, of course, and would include, well, maybe not with Peter Chiarelli in terms of Brandon Manning, although I guess he did talk to Connor McDavid, but it should include talking to the Oilers leadership group about bringing in a player like this, who, they're in the NHL. Would hear a lot of scuttlebutt, and a lot of people might even know Evander Kane. I don't know if any of the current Oilers have played with him or not, but certainly have played against him for a long time. He's part of their club, their uh, larger club of NHL players. So find out what the players think, if they're okay with it. If they do due diligence and they find there's nothing that should prohibit him, nothing so egregious proven that should prohibit him from having a job in the NHL, I'm okay with giving. Let's say he's made some bad mistakes. I think it's pretty clear that he has. We don't know exact the nature of all of them,
Hmm.
but we know he's made some. Certainly in the COVID stuff. I just think,
Yeah.
personally, I'm okay if they do that work. They meet with the guy, they meet with and they have the team okayness. If they all think it's okay, well, I would be okay with it then. I wouldn't object to giving someone a fourth or a fifth or a sixth chance in life and see how he does here. He is, I don't, and part of this, Bruce, is I really don't expect hockey players to be a combination of Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi. And I'm also aware of one limitation that I have. Let's say we were going to judge hockey players morally before we were
Hmm.
going to cheer for them as for their on ice play. This is fraught because we don't. Someone might have great public relations and might be the very image of the most respectable member of society, but be doing terrible things that we don't know about. And there's no way for us to know. And there's also rumors that spread about players, and a lot of them aren't true. I think some of them are, some of them aren't, but there's no real way for us to know. So if we're going to go down this path of judging players, I think it's a little dangerous. Now, you could come back and say, well, he does have this long track record. And that's where I think the due diligence is necessary. And again, if the Oilers decided he's not right for the Oilers based on that, I would be okay with that too. I just think I'm not in a position. I don't think, I guess you could be like an investigative reporter if they wanted to spend weeks digging into Evander Kane's life. It's not something that I would choose to do right now. They could get to the bottom of it. The correct people, the correct authorities are, if there's police matters, it's the police. If it's league matters, it's the league. If it's contractual matters, it's the team. This is a contractual matter. The team investigates it. If they were to decide to sign him, I would be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I think the league has to, and if there's an appeal of against the termination of the contract, this could take a while, and maybe it's not the worst thing if it does take a while for them to sort out, whether San Jose is within their rights, and if they're within the rights, well, what is the extraordinary situation that caused it, and the fact that it's a second COVID related violation after he got suspended 21 games for the first one. I mean, I guess termination of a contract's a pretty severe penalty. But if they just immediately put the player on the market, who knows for one thing, what the price will get bid up to. I mean, people will say, well, if signing for a league minimum for the rest of the year, no problem. Well, if you got 15 or 20 teams, isn't that what you said, Drager said?
Yeah.
15 to 20 teams?
Well, that's probably from the agent, right? Drumming
Yeah,
up.
well, yeah, but I mean, even if it's 5 teams,
Well, what
you
if
know,
what if it's just two or three? Like,
yeah.
it may be a lot smaller list. Drager clearly had talked to the agent, I think, from what he
Mhm.
was saying. I don't know how big the list is, but
Right.
I could see Kane actually being interested in Edmonton in the same way that Tyson Barrie was. He
Hmm.
could come here, play with McDavid or Draisaitl, and put up some good numbers in a short period of
Yeah,
time and then get a better
exactly.
contract. So, I mean, Bruce, he probably would be, if not, he would be one of the Oilers' best wingers. Is he better than Zach Hyman right now? I doubt that. Better than Puljujärvi? Maybe, maybe not. But he would really, based on his level of play in recent years, this is still a very good hockey player. Like if it's just an on ice thing, and if you can get him for a league, on a short term deal, just for the rest of the year, like he's a rental essentially for the playoffs. You've done your due diligence. He's a rental. Yeah, that I could see that working for him and the Oilers, setting him up for if he had a really good run. Now he might want to sign with a team that's frankly better than the Oilers if he has that opportunity, but they may not be able to. They may not want to, risk signing Evander Kane. Maybe Edmonton's. I mean, Edmonton, if you're going to roll the dice, like Edmonton is the right team to do it in a lot of ways, both for Kane and for the Oilers, because the Oilers could use a boost, and so could Evander Kane. And I'm just talking about the hockey stuff here.
Hmm.
So maybe it makes more sense than because I never thought until Dreger said that it never occurred to me that he would come here. I didn't think he would want to, and I'm still doubtful. I still see this as the agent drumming up talk. I don't think he's coming here, but I'm not. I'm not against it, and I like just in terms of hockey, it makes sense. So
We all know he's going to go to Tampa Bay Lightning
you know it, Bruce. You
and
know
and
it.
and sign a contract on the eve of the playoffs, and you know. But then, seriously, I mean, to talk about him as a hockey player, I mean, obviously there's a whole lot attractive about what he brings. I mean, 30 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds, fourth overall pick in the John Tavares draft 2009, and he's had 8 20-goal seasons, topped out at 30 a couple times in his career, 769 games. So consider that 10 seasons, 264 goals, 242 assists, 506 points. So 27 goals, 25 assists per season, uh, and almost 1,000 minutes in penalties, including leading the NHL in penalty minutes in 2 of the last 3 years. I mean, this is a ferocious player. Uh, High volume shooter, lots of hits. Like he's got all kind. He's involved in many different aspects of the game, and some of those are, I mean, some of those penalties are bad penalties. I mean, he's one of those guys that is playing near, goes over the edge kind of time on time. And I mean, we already have a player that we know and love, Zach Cassian, who you would describe the same way. Well, Evander Kane is a whole nother level of
Yeah.
that player.
And I just want to make clear, like I've made clear that I could root for the player if due diligence is done, then they think he fits in, he's the right fit, and it's going to give him a second chance. Listen, people won't agree with that. There will be a lot of people who will say like this guy has done bad enough things,
Yeah.
and there's enough smoke there. There's enough
Hmm.
to be fire, and I don't think he should come. I'm completely okay if someone has that view as well. I get that view.
Hmm.
Like that's not like it's not that's acceptable for people to have that. I respect the view, but you know, he well, we'll see what happens, Bruce.
The
Let's talk.
domestic violence issue is a total red flag. Like that they need to be transparent about their due diligence, because issues like that are just not acceptable in this society.
And you're saying the NHL investigated that aspect of it?
Well, yeah, they couldn't corroborate. It was their sort of he said, she said was what I think what it came down
Yeah.
to. So it's it's hard to. I'd like to think the NHL would have investigated it. I mean, they took their time on other investigations, but once it became front and center in the news that he'd been accused of this, and they had to at least make the appearance of investigating, and they say they did.
Bruce, there's one other piece of news that came across today,
Hmm.
rumor. Elliot Friedman, who's got a lot of credibility as a reporter on his 32 Thoughts podcast, talked about Oilers GM Ken Holland rejecting the idea of trading away Edmonton's first pick, something that Holland had previously talked about.
Hmm.
And now, and what he's saying, he didn't. He said he heard someone else talk to Holland, and this is what he heard. So, but from Friedman, I'm sure this is from an excellent source, and it's credible information that this is Holland's position right now. That with the team the way it is, he just wants to see the team get healthy. He wants to see the team how the team performs the next month, and then he'll make some decisions like this. I think the key phrase in all this is for the time being, he's decided this. And I just see that as like some fans were seeing this as Holland throwing in the towel on the season, and I just see this. No, this is him being reasonable and prudent, and you know it's one thing to trade away your first pick when it looks like you're going to be drafting 25th to 32nd overall in the draft.
Yep.
There's another thing when it looks like you might be drafting possibly when you're an injury or two away from drafting 10th in the draft. Like
Hmm.
the value of a draft pick. Let's just go and we'll go with the Blue Bullet report, Greg McPherson's work on the value
Brad
of the draft pick. So
Brad McPherson.
excuse me, Brad McPherson. I think I went to school with a Greg McPherson.
Oh, yeah.
Brad McPherson's work here. Um, so he values the first overall pick at 100, a value of 100,
Yeah.
and the relative. Then he assesses relative value based on that. So the relative value of it, the first pick is 100. The 31st pick is worth 5.4. So that's how much the value drops from
Hmm.
100 to 5.4. If you're drafting, let's say the Oilers drafted 25th, the draft pick is a value of 10.
Okay.
Um, so essentially 1/10 of the first overall pick. It drops fast. If you're drafting 10th overall, though, it still has a value of 28. So that's a huge difference in the value of a first pick between 10th, drafting 10th and drafting 25th. And Ken Holland's aware of that. And he's, when I think about it, I was advocating trading the first pick for a goalie, not necessarily against it, but it's certainly something to think about. See, I think the Oilers are going to go up from here. So I'd be willing to take that risk if you could get the right deal for the right goalie. But that is a risk that you fall out of the playoffs and you have a lottery pick and you really suffer. And Ken Holland, it sounds like for now, is not willing to, he just wants to see how things turn out. So, I mean, this is the obvious thing to say, unless you really are rushing to fix the team. But they might know more about Mike Smith than I do. They might really think that Mike Smith is actually ready to come back and carry the ball. That might be a firm belief, and they might have knowledge about that. I just see Smith as really shaky, but maybe they know a bit more than I do.
Well,
For sure they do.
it's a double-edged sword. The lower you are in the standings, the more valuable the draft pick you're trading away. But also, I would say the less likely that whatever you get back for that first round pick is going to put you over the top. If you're outside of a playoff berth, you're not going to just make one trade and suddenly be a contender for the cup. Like maybe that Holland's taking a read on his team and saying we're not as close as I thought, and this is a year too early to pull the trigger. And that I know that'll send some people around the bend, but that could be his thinking. I mean, do you see a team that right now that looks like it's ready to win a best of seven playoff series?
No, but I didn't. If you had asked me during the 2005-06 season,
Right.
did I see a team? This team has pieces that are better than the 2005-06 team. They're short some pieces, but then Kevin Lowe went to work at the trade deadline. He
Mhm.
brought in a goalie. He brought in a couple defensemen. Two, was it two or one? Yeah, he brought in Spacek, did he not?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he brought in Pronger before the season, of
He brought in
course, and he
Pronger,
brought
the
in
tech guy,
Spacek and
and
Tarnstrom
Samsonov and
during
Tarnstrom.
during the
Yeah.
season, and Samsonov and
So
Pekka beginning.
so
Like he made a lot of
yeah.
changes.
So yeah, I think this team is close enough. I don't think he's throwing in the towel though, and I don't think he's looking at this team and thinking they have no chance this year. He
Right.
is looking at this team and thinking, I want to see more, and I have more time. And he's probably decided now isn't the moment with Smith coming back and possibly calling up Skinner again. Now isn't the moment to move on a goalie, even though
Mhm.
David Staples says that's the right idea. Now,
Right.
now is I'm just going to see how Mike Smith and Skinner do in the next month, then I'll decide. And obviously there's wisdom in that as well, right? Because maybe Smith and Skinner is good to go. He's been playing very well in the AHL. And if Mike Smith is that, well, you have two goalies you can audition. I'm still uncomfortable with it, but I can see waiting. I can see the argument for waiting to trade that pick for a goalie for a month or so because I do think the Oilers are going to they're good enough to make the playoffs, and I don't think that's. I know it looks like it might be in danger, but I don't honestly think it is, and I think they'll be getting in the playoffs. And yeah, I do see a team that could possibly compete for the Stanley Cup. I still see it. That might be some people might think that's odd, but if they get the goaltending, Bruce, this could still be a good team if they're all healthy, and if they come together. Why not? I mean, they have McDavid and Draisaitl. They've got Hyman, Puljujärvi, Nurse, CC. Keith's been playing better. Evan Bouchard may step up a bit, keep progressing. So I'm not that. I'm still bullish on the team.
Most of those guys are currently in the down cycle, even the top guys in terms of where they can be versus where they have been this last while. And Keith is kind of like he's playing, I'd say, better than he has at any point this season, but he's kind of going against the biorhythms of the rest of the team, if you will. That they're all kind of down at the same time, uh, there's been a lot of crap going down with Edmonton, a lot of sort of incremental um, uh, COVID protocol things, and more than one person has noticed that players coming back from protocol, Kurt's talked about this, coming back from COVID protocol seem to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. Because not only were they not playing games, they weren't even on the ice, like they were completely out of their rhythms. And who knows from the physical side if that's just rust or if there's something to do, something to do with symptoms that they're getting over or what have you. It's they don't tell us a whole lot about the individual health of guys, and as they probably shouldn't. But it's there's a fair bit of mystery to it. But the Oilers have constantly had guys going out playing shorthanded, then the guys coming back but not playing very well. You know, and it's been it's been a real rough time of it for the team as a whole.
Yeah, we don't know how sick they got during COVID, and even if it is like for them, let's say it was a bad cold, or that could be really bad. As listeners of this podcast know, I get a bad cold and I'm coughing for like 2 months. So maybe they're hopefully they're in a little bit they have a bit better immune response than I do, but they could be dragging. They could be really lacking energy, and they could have all kinds of symptoms after a cold. It's not uncommon from colds and flus, regular colds and flus, to be dragging for a month or two after them. So yeah, the only of the key Oilers who haven't been on COVID protocol this year are Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Mike Smith, and Warren Fogle. So pretty much, like in terms of the core 12 players, the heart of the team,
Yeah.
they've all been hit, and some of them, but there still could be bad news. We
Yeah.
could still get some of these other players out. Hopefully the Oilers will have built up some kind of, they're not going to, the COVID won't spread readily on the team because most of them have got it already, is what I'm trying to say. Hopefully that'll be the case, but it could still take out some players. Bruce, you watched the Bakersfield Condors
Yeah.
off and on for the last few days. You've watched parts of 3 or 4 games. Is that correct?
Yeah.
4 games. What are you seeing down there? You have some good news to report, I understand.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wrote a post on last night. This is Monday that we're recording this, and tonight's game, the closer of the rare 4-game Bakersfield at Abbotsford series, has been postponed because Abbotsford has COVID issues. So the original Bakersfield was supposed to go up twice to Abbotsford for 2-game series. And the first one happened to be right when they had that horrific flooding and that natural catastrophe in Lower Mainland and elsewhere in BC. So they canceled that series. So they stuffed them all together. And this weekend they got the first 3 games in, and Bakersfield won all 3 games in Abbotsford. Looked very good in the process. Major caveat that Abbotsford was less than 100% significantly because of said COVID issues, and I think they lost a couple of players to Vancouver's taxi squad, and they were short, and they had, for the second game they were short 3 skaters. They only had 15 skaters out of the 18 that you could have, and for the third game they were up to 16. And for one of them, I can't remember which one, Ryan Holt, the Condors announcer, said that Abbotsford had 3 players in that game that hadn't been on the team when the series started on Wednesday. So they were sort of bringing guys in left and right to fill holes. So I think it's fair to say that Bakersfield was not playing a full strength AHL quality opponent, and it showed. But what also showed to me was I loved the way Bakersfield played. They just came out and played their game and imposed themselves, especially on Sunday, a 4-0 win. Bakersfield was just by far the superior squad, and they did it by not taking any shifts off, by a team approach, very aggressive, very, very aggressive on the puck, uh, behind, deep in the opposing zone on the cycle, but also pinching defensemen coming hard up the walls to trying to keep pucks in, and forwards cycling and rotating back to cover for them. The thing that impressed me was how often you could look out there and see all 5 guys on the ice moving their feet and covering for each other and playing with purpose. So, the overview of the team play was very, very positive. I love their style of play. Uh, there are errors, of course. I mean, this is minor league hockey, but in any hockey, as you know, mistakes happen, right? I mean, even you make mistakes, I understand, from time to time. And they made
Oh,
some, but they made lots of things happen, and they in the most recent game, they scored their goals by going to the net. Um, uh, Raphael Lavoie, who's suddenly woken up after a terrible start. He scored 2 goals yesterday, both by just kind of cleaning up the garbage around the blue paint. And there was a rebound on one and a turnover and a quick pass on the other, and he was able to shovel the puck home a couple of times. Well, Lavoie, I looked it up at the end of November. They played 14 games and he had 22 shots on net, and that's kind of his sort of feature stat is how much is he shooting the puck, because that's what he does. So 1.5 shots a game. From beginning of December to now, they played 11 games and he's got 46 shots, over 4 per game. It's just his volume has just gone up. He had 6 in each of the last 2 games, scored 3 goals on those 12 shots, and one was a big time snipe from high in the slot, and the other 2 were the ones I described earlier. But he's just way more involved in the game, and he's thinking shoot first. He's got, that what Louis DeBrusque constantly refers to as that shooter mentality, and he's actually got it. And you want to see it because that really is his strength. And there was one time it was a 4-on-2, and he had options, that he could have passed, and he just
Mm-hmm.
fired away, and it created a rebound, and that's just as dangerous in many ways as a pass might be. So I didn't mind it. So uh, that's one good sign. Uh,
How did Broberry and Samorukov play, the two
yeah,
big prospect defensemen, Bruce? Let's end it off with that.
yeah,
How did those
okay,
guys do?
yeah. Well, Brobery, uh, he didn't play too good really in the first game in uh, Abbotsford. The second one, I only saw the miracle comeback where they scored 2 goals in the 60th minute and then won it in overtime. I only watched the end of that game. The other 2 I kind of watched live. Um, and by Sunday's game, I was liking his game a lot. Like, he seemed to be out on the ice a whole lot. He was. Uh, I described it as he was just kind of flowing with the game, and the game was flowing through him. There was one sequence where they had a big cycle, and Broberry followed up with a good shot on net from the point, and then the puck broke the other way, and by the time Abbotsford hit the Bakersfield blue line, there was Broberry with a stick in, kind of chipping away and messing it up. The guy tried to pass it. He picked it off with his skates. He kicked it up to himself, and then he's going north with the puck, and then he makes a good pass, and there the whole team is busting back in over the other blue line. And Abbotsford never even got near the net. It was just, I'll take that. Let's go with it again. And so that kind of of uh, of flow, and his skating is so good. Like, he'd make a lead pass and he just kind of glide in behind the play, but in really good position to join the rush if he chose to, or simply, just be a support player from the back. And I'm getting the sense that his game is maturing a little bit, and certainly the North American uh, parts of the game, it's the game's a little different over here, and it's going to take a little time.
Sounds like he's getting more confident and
Uh-huh.
just showing what he's got and feeling confident to show what he's got within the game and deciding that he can dominate things now and then. So
Yeah.
that's what we'd see. That's what we saw last year in Sweden, right? Like up and down games, inconsistent players, but when he was on, that he did, flowing is the right word. He would just get the puck and flow up the ice and cut off plays in the neutral zone with fairly aggressive poke checks and stop them there. And now, what about Sam
As
Rukov,
for
Bruce?
Samarkov, yeah, he too is a disruptor who will try and stop the zone entry at the blue line as opposed to giving it up. And at least in yesterday's game, he was playing extremely aggressively, pinching up the boards, winning battles. Uh, he set up one goal by first of all making a great pinch up the wall and beating 2 guys to keep the puck in, and then they cycled, and Abbotsford got more and more tired, and twice more they tried to shoot the puck out his side, and he kept it in. The second time he had enough time to pick out Cooper Marody in the slot, and Cooper Marody did what Cooper Marody does, which is make a nice move and a great shot, and score his 12th of the season. And But Samorkov was a big part of that play. He had one other assist in the game. He was +3, and I just thought he looked really confident, which was a relief to see after the horrible experience he had in the NHL for those 2 minutes in St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm not judging him on that. That was just
Well, no, you can't. But I was just worried that that would
yeah.
really sort of take him a month to get over it,
Oh,
right? But
yeah.
no, that's not the case at all. He looked good. And the other D man, just quickly, who looked good, who isn't even on NHL contract, but I bet he might be before this is all said and done. Vincent Desharnais, great big guy, 6'6", 216, I think they list him as, and he's just a towering defender. They drafted him way back in 2016 in the 7th round, and he he finished up 3 more years of college, and they thought they didn't sign him to an NHL contract then, but they did like him enough to give him the AHL thing. And man, does he look good! And he's starting to get some offense. Like he had coming into this year, 0 goals in 80 professional games. And now he's got 3, including the game winner in overtime, 3-on-3 overtime. They had this big lumbering defenseman out there, and he scored the winner, and he had an assist in another overtime. Yesterday, he got an assist with an absolutely sweet cross-ice pass from the right side boards by the hash marks, and he found Dino Cambeats all alone at the bottom of the left circle. So it was right across the Royal Road, and Cambeats slammed it home. And it was like, how do you even see the guy? And he put the puck right on the stick, and you think that's not the sort of pass you expect from this style of player. And so he's an intriguing guy, 25 years old, but he's I'd say potential late bloomer with a chance, even as he doesn't even have an NHL contract at this late stage of his career. He looks good.
All right. Well, we'll be checking in with Bakersfield a little bit more as things goes along. We don't know how many games they'll be playing. They're not playing again until Friday, unfortunately.
Right.
So, but anyway, well, Bruce, I got to get running here. So, thanks for talking today.
Yeah, we haven't got any Oilers hockey to talk about, but at least we got some Bakersfield A, and hopefully the Oilers will play on Saturday as scheduled, now rescheduled against Ottawa, and we'll have Oilers hockey to talk about again. So
Yeah.
thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast. Yeah, I'm coaching a minor hockey week game tonight. So,
All right.
the big tournament. All right. Thanks again. Bye.
So you've got a new post up though, right?